leaving.
That is the president saying his phrase, but now it's going to become a formal executive order, and it's going to be signed and talked about today in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And joining him there and joining us now is Congressman Sean Duffy. Congressman Duffy, welcome back.
It's great to be back, Brian. How are you doing this fine day?
Good. First off, instead of just being a slogan, Buy American and Hire American is now executive order. Can you explain to our listeners what you guys mean by that?
Yeah, so first of all, this is Donald Trump keeping his promises. So on the Hire American, this is a H-1B visa issue. So this is our guest worker program. And what he's going to do is basically direct the agencies in the federal government to make sure that we're rooting out fraud and abuse in the system. So when we bring in guest workers, we should be bringing them in to fill demands in our economy that our own American people aren't meeting. But we don't want to bring people in to compete with American workers at a lower wage, driving down the wage then of the American worker. So this is him, the president, just reiterating, let's make sure folks aren't coming in to compete against Americans, but they're coming in to fill spaces that aren't being met by the American economy.
So it's not anti-H-1 visas, because sometimes you need these computer experts coming in here, the next generation of talent, like a football team needs to draft. We want them, but you feel as though it's being abused by which sector?
Well, I guess I don't know that he has specifically indicated any sector. I think what he's saying is, I want to review this program from top to bottom. And again, if we're 10,000, 5,000 programmers short, because all the American programmers are working, but there's a greater demand, well, of course, let's bring in folks through a guest worker program. But if you have 5,000 American programmers who aren't at work because they can't find jobs, and you're bringing in guest workers to compete with them, that doesn't make sense. And again, I think there's a feeling that there could be some funny business being played in how the H-1B visa program works. And that's, Brian, very different than low-skill labor. Like in northern Wisconsin, where I come from, we have a lot of folks that come into the country and work on our farms. These are jobs that American workers aren't willing to take.
Yep. Yeah, I think we might have lost him just a little bit. Could he pop back on? We'll see. We might have got him disconnected. But what we were talking about is Congressman Duffy coming up with this and talking about introducing the president today in Paul Ryan's district. The Speaker of the House is traveling in Europe, so he's not going to be able to be there. And Donald Trump or his staff has basically said, I want to go to Kenosha, Wisconsin. And I also want to underline the fact that while I'm focusing on Syria, worried about North Korea, taking on the ISIS in Afghanistan, I'm not forgetting about the people that put me in the White House. And that's the 23,000 that gave him Wisconsin. That's the maybe 20,000 that almost gave him. He almost got Minnesota, so he has to feel obligated there. And of course, the stunning upset in Michigan, and then the Republicans holding on to Florida. We'll look to hold on to Congressman Duffy and try to get back with him shortly and talk about this and have him talk about what really is going to be taking place. But when you talk about Congressman Duffy, you talk about a guy that's also is somebody involved as chairman of the House Financial Services Subcommittee and also Housing and Insurance. And then the stunning news comes out yesterday that Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, says, yeah, I know I told you about August being the time for tax reform. It's probably not going to be August. That's a little ambitious. Congressman Duffy's back with us. Congressman, we were just talking about another part. One of your hats is chairman of the subcommittee, the House Financial Services Subcommittee. And yesterday, the announcement that Steve Mnuchin basically said, yeah, we're probably not going to get tax reform done by August like I thought. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I don't know that is a correct analysis on the timeline. What we have to do first is get health care reform done. And if health care reform doesn't happen, we won't get tax reform done at all this year or next year. And the reason, Brian, is there's all this complication about why health care has to come before tax reform. But the bottom line is we get rid of $1 trillion in Obamacare taxes that allow us to use budget reconciliation in tax reform, which means we get to lower the dials by $1 trillion right off the bat. And that's key to actually lowering rates for our businesses and our American families. So I think we can get it done by summer if we get health care done in the next 3 to 4 weeks. If we don't get health care done, it's going to be tough to work with Democrats on tax reform because the bottom line is Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer, they want to raise taxes. They're not high enough right now. it'll be hard to find a meeting of the minds with Republicans who actually want to lower rates.
And Congressman, it's going to be tough too. Republicans might want to lower rates, but different how. And no one wants to give up their deduction. No one to give up anything that would, either raise. If you talk to a Democrat, they want to get additional revenue and they want to tax the rich. If you talk to a Republican, they're not going to increase any taxes at all. But then when it comes to this border tax, that's where the $1 trillion could come in and make this deficit neutral. What's your reaction to the border tax?
So we're talking about $2 trillion, $1 trillion from Obamacare and $1 trillion on the border tax. This is an idea that Paul Ryan came up with. I'm a lean yes on that. I think if our currency will fluctuate, meaning the dollar will rise in value, that 20% on imported goods, we won't see that in our stores because our currency has increased in value. One of the problems with this, though, is our exports will be a little bit more expensive. But the thought that we're able to reduce taxes by $2 trillion, get our corporate tax rate down to about 20%, get our individual rates down to 28 to 32%, that'll kickstart our economy and bring us a long way to being far more competitive with the rest of the world. You've talked about this, but these inversions where American companies are buying foreign companies and then moving their American headquarters overseas just to take advantage of other tax rates in other countries is a signal to us in the American Congress. We have to fix the tax code so we can keep American companies in America and keep American jobs in America. And I don't know why Democrats don't get this. And just to talk about what's happening here, we use budget reconciliation for taxes as well. So if you move a tax lever down, you got to move another tax lever up. But if we wanted to just take a wholesale review of how the tax code works, Democrats would have to be part of that conversation. And to your point, they're just about taxing the rich, taxing corporations, which means there's less jobs and less opportunity for middle-class Americans. Or
they do want to lower corporate taxes, whether it's 20 or 15, it seems to be, but they want it to, in exchange for something. But they're not in power right now, but Tom Perez thinks that's all going to change. He saw some interesting trends with the Kansas special election, and he hopes to do something big in today's election. Here he is, the new chair of the DNC, Cut 19.
To me, what's remarkable about that race is that is a beat red district. Republicans usually win by about 30 to 35 points. They won by single digits. If we replicate that success everywhere, we will flip the House in 2018. And we're making tremendous progress.
Are they? And do you expect something to happen in Georgia today where you lose Tom Price's seat?
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen in Georgia, but I think they're misguided. Right now, Democrats are energized. And these special elections, it's about who can you turn out to the polls. And when you have an energized party, your people are going to come out more than probably Republicans. But I don't think that's indicative of what's happening across the country as a whole. Brian, remember back to what happened in Wisconsin with Scott Walker and Act 10 and all the energy for Democrats and the protests and the rallies. And in the end, Scott Walker and all the senators who were recalled, they won with greater margins than they did in the original elections. I don't think there's a big sway that's going from conservative to liberal in America right now. I think a lot of Democrats who didn't even vote for Donald Trump, union folks, they're looking at what he's doing, how he's fighting for them, and his numbers are actually improving with this group. Working Americans are coming to the Republican Party because they understand that we support industry and job creation that puts them to work. So I think Tom Perez is misguided, regardless of what happens in Georgia tonight. The Republican Party is healthy. We're doing well. Mm-hmm. Now, with that said, we do have to get things done. We do have to deliver on health care reform.
If the Freedom Caucus, if you guys don't have an effective health care plan and the Freedom Caucus sits it out and you don't get anything done, it'll be a disaster in 2018. And no matter who has the best ideas, no one's executing. They'll just flip it again.
You know, that is the variable that will be devastating for us, because how do you go back to the voters and say, I promised you that I would repeal Obamacare, and now when I have the House, the Senate, and the White House, I don't get it done, and especially when families are going to see premium increases of 40 to 50% next year. Yeah. They're going to be angry, and not just at Democrats, they'll be angry at Republicans.
Thanks so much, Congressman. Best of luck with the president today in Kenosha, Wisconsin, with this big appearance and his big announcement, his executive order. Congressman Sean Duffy, thanks. This is Brian Kilmeade. Go to briankilmeade.com. Get Kilmeade condensed recaps.